Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're in studio. Jason's here with me.
Hey guys.
And so when Jason came to work with me, he got access to the gun room, and we've had many conversations about some of the oddballs in the back of the safe, and that's what today's video is about. Jason picked, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 guns that you find to be of particular interest, things that he really likes and wish would go back into production, I might add. And so
I'm so far from the truth.
So far from the truth. And so anyway, we're going to take a look at these guns. So Jason, hit me up. What questions do you have about these amazing firearms?
So the first one, believe it or not, I guess came from a show that was on TV that's pretty popular, Doomsday Preppers.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason this particular gun comes to mind is because there's a lot of redundancy. Like it fell into a vat of redundancy. But it is quite an odd gun. I mean, there's a lot of, well, I'll just kind of my point of view of this thing, you've got an AR magwell, if you will, a AK action, an AK safety, an AK underfolder stock, but you have the provisions for an M4 tube as well hanging out back there. What is this thing?
So anyway, this is the Joshua carbine. All right. Amendment Arms, I believe they're out of North Carolina. Produces. So the guy was on Doomsday Preppers, and he talked about this gun, and he had manufactured his own firearm for his own personal use. He was a fan of the AK, but he also liked the features of the AR-15, and like many other designers, in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were looking to make a mashup, if you will. Now, this does come definitely from the 2000s, but what he did is actually a lot of work involved. So he took a Sega AK 5.56, which when this was done, these things were dirt cheap. These were less than $300 guns, right? You remember how they used to come in and they had the plastic wrist stocks on them and everything, and then you had to convert them to make them into an actual AK. So you take one of those base guns, and then this gun, when you take a look at it, it has the AK barrel gas system, bolt and carrier, and fire control group, but everything else he made. So the rail system that you see here, the receiver that you see here, it's all held together by screws, and then the magwell, all held together by screws. The receiver and rail system, all that stuff is his own design and his own manufacturing. And then he just took the Sega parts and dropped them in there. And so it has the AK action, but it feeds from Stenag 5.56 NATO standard magazines, chambered in 5.56. Yes, he decided to use the standard underfolder on here, but also on the rear of it, you do have the provisions for an M4 stock. So you can take this one off and run with the M4 or vice versa, I guess. So I don't think it was intended to be ran both at the same time.
It looks like it might have the room if you collapsed the stock, the M4 stock. I'd be curious. It looks like it would have the room that you could run two different stock options. Like, oh, this one broke off, so now I got my underfolder I can turn to. Or
you don't like this one? You just do the infamous, prepper line. Well, I'll just pick up what I need off the battlefield. Well, yeah, you can just pick up an M4 stock and stick it on your Franken rifle.
Yeah.
But it works. It's neat. And I don't think the company's around anymore. After Doomsday Preppers went off the air, it just people went their own ways. The show was hysterical. I mean, some of the people they featured on there. I'm not talking about this particular episode, but there was some, like one guy had a castle they had rebuilt into a fortress or something. I don't know if you ever watched the show.
Yeah, no, I watched it. Yeah.
They had some and then they all had different ideas of how the world might end. And I don't remember the story behind this particular gentleman, but some of the guys, they were worried about super volcanoes. Other people were worried about a financial collapse. Other people were worried about an asteroid hitting the earth. Other people were worried about, nuclear war. Everybody had their thing that they were absolutely certain was going to happen. And that's what they were prepared to live through.
Right.
And so it was a fun show. And keep in mind, I grew up in the 80s when prepping they're called survivalists in my day. And they even made movies about it. Walter Matthau and why I remember his name and not Robin Williams. Robin Williams and Walter Matthau, they made a movie called The Survivalists. It's a comedy and it's really funny, but it kind of makes light of the entire movement back then. Today we call them preppers and things like that. I guess the word survivalist is kind of a dirty word in the community now. I don't know. I don't walk in the circles, but
who knows? But it's just this rifle kind of brings a friend of mine, shopping for a home or whatnot. He come across a homestead, and the person that used to own it was a prepper. Mm-hmm. He had everything set up for it to sustain, water and food and everything you can imagine on this place. Well, he grew old and passed away. He had his preps, and what did the estate or family do? They came in and basically strip mined everything and sold it all for pennies on the dollar to, God knows, buy their fifth car, 6 car. I don't know.
Yeah.
But here they had this turnkey, full prepper paradise, and like, sell it all, get rid of all of it.
The entire life's work of that poor man.
Yep.
And his family comes in, just parts it out. And yeah.
Yep. So
that's unfortunate for him.
it was kind of interesting, but it was what my buddy's looking for was something like that. But of course they sold everything out from under it, but just the property left. But I digress.
No, but anyway, yeah, I mean, it's still a very, very common movement. I mean, gosh, one of the reasons we moved to the country years ago is because we were trying to get away from the cities and the madness that would, eventually envelop the cities. And what happened the year after we moved out there?
Oh yeah, the toilet paper wars.
Yeah, toilet paper wars kicked off. And so, yeah, I mean, we're not making fun of survivalist preppers, whatever.
God, no.
I mean, both you and I would consider ourselves to be somewhat prepping minded. Like I have running water on my property, have a garden, have animals and chickens, and
only makes sense,
right? So when the Weezer hit, we were pretty much unaffected. It didn't change our way of living at all. So anyway, what's the next one?
So I'll let you just pull this thing up. It has like a combination lock built into it.
The Fox carbine.
And this gun is probably the worst of the worst. And not only do you have one, and not only do you have two, but you have 3 of these atrocities. So
this is an awesome firearm.
Not only, like I said, it has a combination lock built into it, plus a grip safety, plus it's horrendous style. But go ahead.
Yeah, so obviously it's patterned after the Thompson, right? But Thompsons were very expensive when this thing was developed. It was developed for law enforcement, right? So it had all these goofy safety features. And you can easily remove the stock. You could change the chambering from 9mm to 45. This one's the 45. You can see the grease gun mag in it. And they're blowback guns. I'm not blowback, I'm sorry, open bolt guns. So they fire from the open bolt. And they're just cool firearms. Yes, it has a combination lock on it, believe it or not. Just like right off a bicycle lock. Right here on the side, little wheel. And so you could lock the carbine in your cruiser, and then you'd have to dial in the combination before the gun would work. And they had a bunch of different accessories and stuff like that. Now, these, like other guns like the Spas 12 and stuff like that, they have parts that were like hard rubber inside of them that would go bad. I don't know, it's been many years, was a company where you could get replacement parts like the buffers. So all my guns have new buffers and stuff in them. Without those buffers, these will beat themselves to death very quickly. And so this one, all of my carbines have all the updated buffers and stuff because they got dry rot, just like the Spas 12. If you buy a Spas 12, folks, go to spas12.com. They went out of business. They might be back. I don't know. But you cannot fire a Spas 12 with eroded, degraded internal parts, plastic buffers and stuff, because they will beat themselves to death too. So anyway, yeah, very, very cool gun. Very much looks like the old Thompson. It has like a brass trigger and butt plate. I mean, it's like old world wood stocks. These were really cool, and I think they're fun. They're modestly reliable. I wouldn't say they're super reliable, and of course they're not made anymore. The company that made them is long gone. But yeah, it looks like a cast receiver, a stamped upper half, and an open bolt. Who doesn't like open bolts? Jason, why would you be so mad about an open bolt?
Oh, I'm not mad about it. Just the aesthetics of this firearm look like somebody's first drawing. Like when they first, the first picture they ever drew of a firearm, this would be it. It is definitely an ugly spud.
Now,
open bolt is cool. I give it that. That's definitely a good part on it. But wow, the combination lock is what threw me off on the thing. I mean, look,
just like the Thompson,
not even close.
The air fins. I mean, you have to admit it's a sexy gun, man. You want one. You're just jealous. You just want one.
No,
you're like, what do you need 3 of them for? Give me one.
When I walked in there, I was just like, what is this? And I just couldn't get over the thing. So
I love them.
The other one that, Bushmaster will never probably make again, or it'll show the light of day. This gun is interesting and weird at the same time. Like this one, you just kind of do one of those, like, cock your head when you look at it. Like, what is this thing? We
did a video on this one. If I can get the little 3D printed mag thing here, little holder. We did a video on this one. So Bushmaster, when they got started, they had some other firearms that were not AR-15s. I think we did a video on the AR, which is actually assault rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And that was before they started making AR-15s. It was their first rifle. This is another firearm from that era. It's called the ARM pistol, ARM pistol. And why do they call it that? Well, because it's designed to be fired with one arm. Your arm is the brace. Now, what's funny is you could actually put this in your shoulder, and the ATF didn't seem to care back then. Right now, we're still litigating the whole brace rule thing. But anyway, so this would be an attempt. It's considered a handgun, right? So it's chambered in 5.56 or 223. Here's its gas system up here, the gas piston up here, and what's kind of unique about it is that the underside can turn. Okay, so you can hold your gat like this and gank with it from the side. And what's even more interesting is the front sight is right here. So you'll notice the front sight swivels with the lower half. But if you want to adjust your rear sight, there's little detents here. And so depending on what angle you have, believe me, it's not precise. Okay. And you get this at the angle, you lock it over here, you swing over your rear sight to whichever side you have it angled to. And now you have a V-notch rear and a post in the front.
I can literally see from here that nowhere near aligned with each other. So.
You can make adjustments, but yeah. And then the charging handle's right here. The ejection port is right there on the top.
So that's a reciprocating charging handle on that thing. Then.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Directly
connects to the piston.
Yep.
Right there.
That is quite an interesting gun. That was one of the first ones that when I laid eyes on it, I was like, I stopped everything. I was like, what is this? And why does this exist?
Yeah. If you look at this thing, Jay, this has an old school Colt Bakelite grip on it.
I see that. Yep.
That should date this thing.
It is just such a goofy design.
It is.
The fact that you can, like you said, rotate it and just.
It's a bullet hose. It's point blank,
I guess I'm trying to figure out why it was made in the first place. What would.
You mean you don't want one? Who wouldn't want one of these?
I don't know. I just look at it
all you have to do now is in the modern era, if you brought this back, make this non-reciprocating, put a mounting plate up here, put a red dot on it, call it a day. You can hold the grip angle, whatever you want here. You don't need iron sights on it. But keep in mind when this thing came about, red dot sights were, pretty much theoretical back then. Very, very early ones existed.
So, we've had videos like this before where we talk about you don't have to have guns for some tactical reason. You can have them just to have fun. This thing is just weird in all the places. And so
it's about 90% of my collection.
Yeah. It's just weird. Looking at that thing, I was like, I don't even remember if I shot it during the video or not. I was just like, I don't want to even.
I think I'll blow my face off. Yeah.
I
see all sorts of funny comments about them. Yeah. I saw something on Twitter just recently. Somebody posted a picture. I want to say somebody's talking about bringing them back or something, but I think they're cool. I think modernizing it, making a few changes to it to improve ergonomics, reliability, and the ability to mount some sights to it, I think would be pretty epic. And then chamber it in 300 blackout or matter of fact, make one in, 300 Norma.
I would be very curious if that comes back, what updates they could possibly do to that thing to make it cool.
300 Win Mag would be fun. But anyway, I digress.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah. Very, very interesting firearm for sure. Sorry about all the banging around, guys. That leaves us with one, which is one of my favorites, which we've never done a video on, and I'll have to say why.
Yeah, so this one here is same thing. It's just that old school, calico.
This is the American Uzi Nighthawk carbine, Nighthawk Weaver Arms carbine. This thing, I have two of them. This is my shooter, which we broke out at your range years and years ago. These literally are American Uzis with a bunch of cheap plastic parts. So, the top cover comes off just like an Uzi. Inside, you're going to find a telescoping bolt just like an Uzi. It's literally an American-made Uzi. And it was very affordable, but also very cheaply manufactured. So you have a lot of plastic parts here. The whole front end is plastic, but the handguard on the Uzi is plastic, but this goes beyond that. The pistol grip is plastic attached to metal. This thing is, I can see it flexing. The whole lower receiver, everything's polymer. Matter of fact, the mag release, when we started shooting it, the mag was falling out. It was malfunctioning because the mag was falling out. It uses Uzi magazines. And that's because the magazine catch was plastic, dry rotted plastic. So under recoil with the vibrations, it ultimately broke my, I need maybe Chase or somebody to make me a new mag catch for it so we can go back to shooting. Now the other one is brand new in the box and I'll have to get a picture of it, but it's in the box, has the belt buckle, 80s style, the big old 80s style Western belt buckle. And the gun is brand new, unfired in the box, and it has its original box, which is a treat in and of itself, just the marketing and the graphics and stuff from that era. So yeah, that's all it is. It's just a pretty much just a
So that's exactly what I thought. When I looked at it, I was like, it's kind of like an Uzi, but
worse.
really cheap.
Yeah,
Like it's just everything about it. Looking at it, I want to say it's a polymer front sight on there.
it is.
The polymer front grip, just polymer everywhere, and then they have a metal buttstock.
Yeah, very very rudimentary metal buttstock.
So they went, like a sheet metal style buttstock back there, but all the important parts are polymer. So
Yeah, it would have been fun as a kid in the '80s shooting something like this because Uzis were considerably more expensive than these were. But yeah, I mean, I don't think many of them made it. If you go out looking for them, they're kind of hard to find.
see, I know when you tell me about stuff back in the 80s, the stuff that was available or the stuff that was out or the stuff that was, at gun shops compared to now, it's just like, what?
We had so many import guns. We had so many. I mean, gosh, surplus guns were dirt cheap back then. Mausers and Enfields, and you could just get anything for less than $100. And of course, we had every company on the planet making guns. I mean, if you go back and you take a look at some of my oddball handguns and stuff I have from that era, like the old Wiley pistols and stuff like that. They did some really really cool stuff. The AMT pistols. There was some really really cool stuff. I mean, they had a pistol. I want to call it a 1911 like-ish pistol, but it's really not. The AMT 30 carbine. You remember those things?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we just had all sorts of crazy. If somebody came up with an idea, even the Bren 10 comes from that era, right? It's just they had a crazy idea. They had a brand new cartridge they wanted to make a gun for. This well, I can make that cheaper like this. I can make an Uzi here in the United States. We won't call it an Uzi because we'll get sued, but we'll make one anyway. We'll just use plastic because we're Americans and make everything plastic. That's why we're making plastic dashes in cars. And so, yeah.
No, it's quite interesting to hear the difference when your firearm shopping experience compared to mine. Like I was during the assault weapons ban, the Clinton assault weapons
90s
ban.
era, yeah.
So there was nothing that I could really get that was kind of cool guy, if you will. It was
all the cool stuff from the 80s would have been considered pre-ban and was wildly expensive.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing. And you could go to, my local gun store and they would have a few of those things. But like you said, that was just, there's not a chance a young 18-year-old could buy that at all.
Right.
And so you'd look at it and you're like, wow, that's what I want. But then you look at what was actually in your price range. It was like a high point carbine or
right.
I remember getting a Yugo SKS and it was the most amazing thing until I pulled it out of the thing and it was literally like
caked in cosmoline.
It's, like Jurassic Park with the mosquito inside the
the amber.
Yes, the amber. It was like that. The cosmoline had hardened into this shell. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to get this off? Right. And there's really no internet I could turn to figure out how to get this stuff off of there. So I'm sitting there using like Hops 9, which isn't doing anything.
Turns it to goo at that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I remember finally like just getting
gun metal and
gasoline and started dumping it on there and finally breaking it free. And once I got everything out of there, and then I couldn't find ammo for it. I was like,
there's so many tricks to that. People would boil parts. They would use, really harsh chemicals, heat guns on metal will make the stuff just run off the gun like oil. But the wood was the most challenging part, trying to get all that stuff out of the wood.
And then I had to find to go into the bigger calibers, I bought a Turkish Mauser. And then we had one local gun shop here that closed down, unfortunately. But I remember walking in there with my new Turkish Mauser, walking in there, and the range officer stopped me. He's like, hold on, what ammo are you shooting out of that? I'm like, oh, this stuff. And I'm holding up like a bandolier of just this garbage ammo. He takes a magnet and he's like, you can't shoot this in here. And I was like, why? He puts the magnet on there. I had no idea. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's just so funny the stuff that I had to buy to try to enjoy firearms compared to, now there's a lot of cool stuff out there now, and we need to most certainly keep it that way, but this stuff here, this was during a time where it's like you said, if they had an imagination of like, I can build that, and somebody just went and ran off to a workshop and built it,
and that's what happened.
Turned into like the worst thing possible to make, and then it's no longer available.
You had companies like Armalite that did exactly that. I have early Armalite AR-180s and stuff that they made. They weren't even a production house. They were an R&D shop. And so having an original Armalite AR-180, but that's what they did. It's like they had an idea. They were well-funded, but they had smaller companies like this doing it. And that's where we got the Linda carbines, and that's where we got, the Nighthawk carbines, and that's where we got the Tech 9s, and that's where we got all that stuff.
Yeah.
Was just if they had an idea, somebody would go out there and make it. I mean, gosh, we had people taking 1911 frames and making 308 uppers that they could pin to them and they kept going up and up. Somebody even made one on a 50 BMG.
I remember those.
I think Guns and Ammo or somebody did an article like voted this guy the most likely person to blow himself up in like 1987 because he had taken his 1911 frame and he had made a 50 BMG pin on upper for it. So it just all sorts of craziness went on back then because the ATF wasn't heavy in the regulation on manufacturing or in dealing. You know, it was just kind of a free for all. And guess what? We didn't have a bunch of crazy shootings.
Yeah.
Go imagine. But, yeah, no, it was a different era. And I like to think we're like in the second renaissance now, where we're seeing more companies that maybe were foreign in their origins, but have moved to the United States to start manufacturing. Glock's moved to the United States. H&K has moved to the United States, right? They've all set up manufacturing over here. And so they're getting around those import laws, and we're starting to see a resurgence of some of the kind of cool stuff that everybody wants, right? We're inundated with, we don't have this cool stuff anymore, the cheap 80s guns, but we have different stuff now. And so it's neat to watch the industry kind of work around all the heavy regulations and the heavy-handed draconian gun laws. It's kind of like when, you know, the 70s rolled around and we had monster, you know, Corvettes with 454s in them that just gas guzzling, spewing, you know, toxic chemicals in the atmosphere. And everybody's like, oh no, we got to shut all that down. They started putting catalytic converters on everything. And Corvettes went from, you know, 454 horsepower down to 100 horsepower because they were so restricted. We kind of went through that dry patch. And that was kind of like what the 90s were for us, you know. And then you get into the 2000s, the assault weapons ban goes away in 2004. And people are like, okay, maybe we're going to invest in this again now. And then you started seeing, you know, throughout the later 2000s up till current, you're seeing all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah.
So not the old stuff, but cool new stuff that unfortunately will become modern collectibles at some point as well as things change, you know? So.
Yeah, we see that even now. There's companies that bring stuff out that is kind of modern tech, if you will. Look at the, you know, the FS 2000. It's not that long ago that they pulled that from the market and nobody wanted that gun. And now those things have skyrocketed in value. Same with, and I don't know if Beretta stopped making them or they, you know, go through batches, but the ARX 100.
Yeah, I don't see much out of them anymore.
You know, I just don't see many of those things. I don't even see them on like distribution or anything.
Nobody talks about them or anything. Yeah.
And same thing. Those things they had to sell them for like $900. I want to say you bought a brand new one for.
It's like buds. We were road tripping somewhere for work. And
now that they're gone, they go right back up in price. So now something like these guns that I kind of brought out here, I would imagine would just be like $50 or something like that.
$50? No way. This is my kid's college fund right here.
Oh my God.
I'm going to hold on to this thing until it's worth $1 million. No. Yeah, it's funny. And you know, the prices on these things fluctuate. You know, you'll see them get really expensive. Like we went into the assault weapons ban era, you know, stuff that was commonly available and was less than $600, like HK91s, suddenly became $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 guns.
Yeah.
And then after it sunset, of course, we had inflation, but those prices started to come back down. And then you had people like PTR and everybody else who were bringing in parts kits, FMP part kits and stuff like that. They're bringing in all this stuff. And people started manufacturing it again here in the United States, getting around again those import laws. And but we've even seen guns come in out of Switzerland and stuff like that because for a while, importers, ATF was approving rifles that had the stocks removed off of them that were considered to be handguns. And so as those laws and regulations change, the importers will do different things. And it's kind of cool to see it all happen, but I still miss some of the old guns like this. It'd be cool to see them made again, just a little bit better maybe, because the plastic didn't age well. It's not like modern polymers, you know. It's true plastic, I think, just like recycled bottles, plastic.
Probably.
It's bad.
On that particular one, that's why I grabbed it. I was like, you can just feel the cheapness of the plastic on that thing. Just like the site itself looks exactly like recycled bottles or something that they threw together on there. But
yeah, they're a hot mess.
It's quite an interesting era of firearms because all of these come from that same era.
Yeah.
And it was just like, what was going on during this time frame? Because I was just a little kid. I had no idea about any of this stuff, you know, but now seeing it, now it's like, what is this? Where did this even come from? What? And
what's funny is like, there's more of a market for this stuff today than there was in the 80s. Because keep in mind in the 80s, AR-15s and stuff like that were available, but they weren't popular. Like most of the shooting community they're what we call FUDs today. They're like, oh, if it doesn't have wood on it, it's junk. You know, all that freaking polymer and plastic AR-15s. Who needs that? Joaquin Jackson's in the NRA. A real man only needs 5 rounds, you know? And that was kind of the mentality back then. And we were the outliers, the kids that wanted the AR-15s and, you know, all the stuff, the Nighthawk carbines, Linda carbines, and all the crazy stuff, the Fox carbines. We wanted to play with it all because it was fun and different. And so now you get into today, and everybody is, I mean, AR-15 is like America's #1 selling rifle. People, AKs, I mean, gosh, in the 80s, AKs were considered communist junk. Nobody wanted them. You could buy, I mean, when I first started looking at AKs, I think they're like $179. And then by the time the 90s rolled around, just before the assault weapons ban, they might have been up to 300. You know? And then when the bans hit, then of course those prices went nuts, so we never saw them again.
Yeah. Well, it's just
So-
like this past SHOT Show. I want to say there was at least like a dozen or more 9mm something or other PCCs that were introduced. And then I think maybe a dozen lever guns, tactical lever guns.
You know, I was just in Ewa in Germany a few weeks back, which is their SHOT Show, the European SHOT Show, if you will. And I saw all these people knocking off the CZ Scorpion Evo. All these companies had made clones of it. And I'm like, wow, man, I wonder how long before those get to the United States. And I get back to the United States, and guess what I see everywhere? All these knockoff CZ clones. It's like everybody's making an AR-15 9mm, and now it seems to be the hot thing is to clone that CZ for some reason. I don't know how they're getting away with it, but I don't know if they sue each other over there like we do here, but
Yeah, there's some cool stuff at that EWA that you see that I just wish we could have here. There are some really cool
Very cool
guns
stuff.
that are over there that you see video of, and you're like, oh my God.
I know. And
If
people think
that
that
were to come here, like
HK will not bring the 243, which is the semi-automatic G36. They will not bring it to the United States, but you can buy it in Europe. And then if you try to buy them in Europe and import them and sell them in the United States, HK will get in the way. They don't want them here.
I think they got the MR223 or something too, which is like a more authentic
Right.
416
Well, we
than our
finally-
MR556.
Yeah, we
that
got the
get.
M27s, a
Well-
limited production number of the actual USMC semi-automatic rifle.
Looking at that, just pictures, just looking at it though, it looks like they basically just put the longer quad rail on an MR556.
Oh, I'm sure it's a minimal effort on their part.
And then they put basically the MR27 designation on the receiver. So
And if you get the
Same
deployment kit, it'll come with an RCO optic.
it's just like you said, they have it. It's in Europe, but just not here.
They don't want you to have it. I guess they're still salty about the whole World War I, World War II thing. I don't know. Hard to say. But anyway, I'm glad we finally got the chance to do this video because we've been talking about this for a while. And you're like, man, I just want to grab some of the most oddballs you have in your gun collection. And some of the stuff I just have to ask why. Why do you own this? And why do you have 3 of the Fox carbines?
I know.
So it was fun.
I rag on it, but I love all firearms. I don't even care. Like that arm pistol thing, the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I love it
I know.
just because it's a firearm. I love all firearms.
Right.
So I want keep them coming. Same thing. I know I sound a little down or whatever for like the 15th 9mm PCC at SHOT Show. I don't care.
Right.
Keep building them. Keep them coming.
If that
So-
flops your mop, go buy it.
Yep. If that's what you like to shoot and enjoy, do it. If you
Yep.
want to buy 5 of them, I don't care. Do it. You do
Yeah.
you and love the shooting sports. That's
And
it.
Just to remind you guys, again, Jason brought it up earlier, and I live my life by this. My gun collecting is governed by this. You don't have to buy a gun for tactical reasons. Not every gun has to serve a practical or tactical purpose. You're allowed to just have fun with them. And that's why I have some of these old classics in my collection, because they remind me of my youth and they're just fun to shoot. But sometimes you'll break parts, and those parts are not easily replaced. Sometimes they're not even replaceable, so you have to manufacture them. So I'm just waiting for 3D printing technology to come along. Then I'll start manufacturing my own spare parts. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed today's video, folks. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel, the best way to do that is to become part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description below. Right here on YouTube, you got the thanks and subscribe button underneath the video player you're watching right now. You can mash either one of those buttons and you can help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Please swing by, check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 16 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Take care, guys.